Hi everyone, it's Natalie here, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. So I'm actually going to be talking to my mother, Robin, here today. She has a really solid and strong background in sales I'm going to be telling you about in a bit. But we're going to be talking about how to feel more confident in sales, how to actually get more clients, how to get more nutrition coaching program clients, how to sell in a way that's not pushy, that's not sleazy, but still allows you to genuinely connect with people and be able to get more clients. Okay, so this is my mother, Robin. All right, she actually worked for a Fortune 300 company back when she was in her 20s and early 30s, right? Back in her 20s and early 30s, where she worked her way up to becoming the director of sales for 7 states. Okay, and she was actually the second woman hired by pretty much a male-dominated company, right, in a sales position, and she was the youngest woman hired there too. Okay, so we're going to be talking to her today. She's going to be giving us lots of great info. I always said as a kid that I would never go into sales. I didn't want anything to do with sales, and then here I am today teaching you all about sales, and I would say that a lot of my own now love for sales probably comes from my mother, okay? So she's...
Mom accomplished something there.
Yeah, we're going to be passing the microphone back and forth because this was kind of a off-the-cuff idea I had rather than, oh, I need to order a second microphone so my mother will have one too idea, right? But I think if you could just start with, I'd love to ask you, because I know for a lot of people that we struggle with feeling confident selling, right? And maybe we even feel nervous about, bringing up money. So I think probably the first thing that I wanted to ask you was because I know a lot of people deal with it. They feel like they want to feel more confident in selling themselves, and they feel awkward when selling themselves or selling what they have to offer, right? And so I think that we'll probably first talk about that. And then I know another issue that people deal with is bringing up money. But kind of to start, if you wouldn't mind to start.
Right, really broad topic, Natalie. But to really hone in, I think the company that I work for, Hill & Brand Industries, we really strove to provide the customer with what we call the total system sale. And there were 3 components that were really important to that. The first one I would say would be that you know your product and your service inside and out. The second part would be that you invest money into your own skills, become more professional, educate yourself. I was fortunate. I worked for a company that invested a great deal of money in their sales force. They realized the importance of every salesperson they hired, and that was our total job at that time. And that was to do what we did best, and that was in front of the customer, selling the product and the service. We sold a very intangible item. So from that perspective, you really had to know your product and your service. The second part of the system, it involved knowing your competitor and knowing your competitor's weaknesses and strengths. So we really spent some time researching those items. And you get a lot of that information from your customers if you listen about it. And really ask the right questions to your customers. And that brings up the third and a really important topic, which would be that you know your customer. I just really cannot emphasize enough how important that is to know your customer. Your customer will tell you a lot of things if you listen. And we learned early on that that's why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, as they say.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I talk a lot about how listening is really the key in selling, and that you're supposed to honestly on a call, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm supposed to say more. Oh, I'm nervous about talking more. When really it's about deeply listening to what the person is asking and then understanding what they feel like they personally need, right? So I think next we'll probably talk about because I had also brought up the topic of money and feeling, because, I think for you, this might be a bit different, right? Because you were, well, I don't know, Mom, when you first started. But I know for a lot of people, whenever they get to the point of talking about money, they kind of freeze up because they're like, oh, it feels kind of awkward to bring up money to people. What advice would you give those people that are feeling a little bit nervous about bringing up money?
Well, Natalie, the customer that you're speaking, and I worked with a customer who had a great fear of selling their client. It was a very service-oriented industry, and I sold an intangible, which is something a lot of people don't understand. You're not out there with this product that you can touch and feel. It was an intangible. It was a contract. It was a very service-oriented item. And therefore, the client that I sold to, who was service-oriented, they never felt like they wanted to be pushy to their customer. Mm-hmm. So we had to be considerate of that and essentially help them to understand that you're providing knowledge and information to that customer to make a better decision. And most people really appreciate the fact that you help them have options about things that they're interested in purchasing. They just don't know that they need or that they're interested in purchasing because no one's taken the time to explain the value of that. And so that was a lot of what the company that I work for, that's the reason that they invested in the sales force. And they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to train us and bring in top speakers. There was just a myriad of different components because they wanted us to be out there doing what would promote the company in the best light. And keep in mind, you're not doing anybody any favors if you don't take this from a standpoint of really wanting to be honest, provide genuine value.
Yeah.
It's really not doing anyone a favor.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And I really like to emphasize to my own Grow Your Impact students that it's not like you all are trying to sell some sort of worthless piece of garbage that nobody wants, right? We're not out here. It's not like you've created something that no one wants, that's not helpful to people. People are actively seeking help. They actively need you. And you should be thinking to yourself, well, thank goodness I created it because now I can actually help people. And so I think reframing that in your mind is a great way of realizing that money is not a weird thing. We exchange money all the time. You go to the dentist, you pay them. Okay, you use a realtor, you pay a realtor. Okay, money shouldn't be this strange thing for us, especially when you're providing such a valuable service. I think next, a great question, because you really brought up the importance of connection, right? Mm-hmm. Connection on a sales call, okay? What would you say, what's a great tip? I'll give you two ideas of how you can answer this question, and then I'll let you take it however you want.
Give me two ideas, okay?
So, first one is, when you're first get on a call, what would you recommend to be able to actually, let's just answer the first one, to be able to connect with the person immediately, right? So that it doesn't seem like, oh, now I'm just asking this person questions and they're just replying. What would you recommend for somebody at the very beginning? You need
to do some research about the individual that has either requested that you call them, or that in the case, in my situation, we just had an entire list of clients that we cold called on, or that already used the services, or that were referred to us and there'd never been a contact made. I know this was back when the dinosaurs roamed. The earth was void of light and all darkness. So a little different situation. There were no computers. There were no cell phones. None of that existed. So you really either met the client in person, spent a lot of windshield time, pulled over to the archaic phone booth periodically. But the research that went into understanding the person. We segmented our clients, and I would suggest that anyone does that, because you're going to have clients who have never ever attempted to do this type of business. You're going to have clients that have delved into it to some extent, and then you're going to have clients who are really wanting to become more aggressive, and they've tried other programs that have not been so successful for them. And this is why we go back to my original point, that you need to know your competitor and their product better than they know it themselves. And when you know that, and you know what you offer, and you make that initial contact with the client, I think you just need to genuinely relax, be comfortable, be yourself. Don't get in a huge rush. Just ask them a couple of questions. When you get a response, then it'll lead you to another item that if you listen to what the answer was, and you're not so concerned about what you're going to say, it's going to flow. And then it becomes much easier, and it transitions. And you begin to build this relationship, which we used to build without ever seeing anyone. You were on a phone. So you really had to develop some listening skills. And I would actually encourage your customers to maybe try that. When you're not distracted by seeing someone, you tend to listen. And when you really have to develop that listening skill, you're more in the present.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. So I want to kind of talk about just briefly how you can apply this to selling nutrition coaching services. So what Mom was talking about was basically how she did research on competitors and then what also her own clients wanted, right, prior to getting on the call, but for individual clients. Now, what I teach you all is to actually go after a particular type of client, to have a niche, right? And then to do market research about that niche. So after you've done that market research, you kind of already know how they feel about things. You already know a little bit about what their personality tends to be like. Okay, you already kind of know what they're looking for, what the problems they're currently facing, right? So doing that first is really important before you start getting on calls with people and trying to sell to people, and you think they want one thing when really they want something else. And then the second part that Mom was talking about is really developing those keen listening skills, right? Which is really, really key. I find a lot of people, they try to think of sales as like, oh, this is somehow this otherworldly thing that's not like regular life. And so we put all this pressure on it and we feel like it has to be weird, when really, what do you do? What should you be doing, right? What should you be doing every single time you speak to somebody and you just have a conversation? Listening to them, right? Just relaxing. You're being yourself. You're listening. And then you think of another question to ask. And it's very conversational.
And I'll bring up a point to that, Natalie. I served a very niche client, but we didn't have the benefit of looking this stuff on and having all these websites where people told you things about themselves. But if you relax and become comfortable in the sales process, your client or prospect will tell you what they want. So if you learn to do that and slow things down, don't get in too big a rush to try and just make one or two strong points, but they will tell you wherein their issues are problematic, what things that they've had success at. And you want to keep in mind, ask those open-ended questions. We were always trained and honed our skills to ask very open-ended questions. Have you used this in the past? And if they tell you they have, well, then tell me, how did it work? Did it work well? And they'll tell you whether or not it did. What were the things that you wish that you could have if you waved the magic wand? It would have worked better with that product or that service you were getting. So I think that's, really a key, is to just take a deep breath, let your clients tell you what their needs are. And then ask them, after you hear that, you're making mental notes about what your product or service feels in that void for them. And then come back and visit that, after they give you that bit of valuable information, really.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I like to think of this too as a kind of an opportunity. I like to think of it as you don't really need to sell them. You can let them sell themselves if you understand what's going on in their situation, right? And that's done by asking questions, right? So one of my favorite things to do is when I'm on a call and maybe we haven't been on the call very long, but the person's already thinking and they're like, oh, well, tell me about what you offer, right? But I don't know enough about them, right, at that point, okay? Or even at a point, maybe we get to the end and I can tell that they're feeling a little bit nervous about it because I've been really listening to them keenly and I can hear in their voice that they are not really fully on board yet. So I know if I just start making an offer, they're probably going to be like, yeah, this is not for me, right? So really great thing to do is when someone asks you, right, and you're in one of those two situations and they ask you, hey, what do you offer, or can you tell me more about what you offer or something like that. Asking a question like, what do you feel like you need will do so much more than just trying to reply. So trying to just then think, okay, now I've got to start talking about myself and selling myself and what should I say to make them want it, right?
Yeah, and I'll offer another suggestion there. You might want to answer the question simply by saying, I have a lot of different options because I have clients at several different levels. So in order for me to offer you what's going to work best for your situation, I need to really understand how your business currently works, where you're having issues, how comfortable you feel with your own client and your own product compared to your competitor. So let's break some of that down. Are you willing to help me understand that? And that's how I can best help you.
Yeah. So it's really important too that when you run into some of those different situations, you always frame it in a term of like, this is how I can best serve you, right? Because that is what sales can be. Sales can be a way of service, right? If done correctly. It doesn't have to be this sleazy thing that we don't like to do, right? But
that's your own mental issue.
I knew this was gonna happen.
When you think it's sleazy, I would say that somehow you've been conditioned in an improper way to feel that.
Well, I agree too, Mom. I agree too. I knew this was gonna happen at some point.
Well, I don't like that word sleazy.
I know, Mom, but I'm trying to. The thing is a lot of people feel like sales is sleazy because they haven't done it before. Or they've been in a situation, like if you've been in a situation where it feels very pressuring, right?
Well, that just tells me that the person doesn't have professional sales skills. And that's why you're spending the time learning something from someone like my daughter who has taken the time to hone that and wants to really, really help you develop those. And in that instance, it never comes across any other way. When you have developed yourself and invested money to do that, and time, and education, it's all in your own head and emotions. And if you don't take the steps to go from point A to point B in developing yourself, you'll always stay at a level where you don't feel like what you offer is professional. And you really, sales is one of the most professional things you can do. People buy something every day. And that's what is, I think, hard for people who are service-oriented to overcome. You never feel badly when you go to your doctor or your attorney and you have to get this advice. No. And you have to remember, when people come to you, they don't know what you're about. They don't know what you offer. You know it much more than they do. And so don't become uncomfortable to the point that you forget, I'm the one that's the expert in my business. I'm the one that knows what I'm doing. I feel good about it. Well, I would encourage anybody to sell anything they don't feel good about. So clearly, that's something you really need to be honest with yourself and genuine about.
Right. So I do think this is an important thing. So this is an important, good mindset shift that we're talking about here. Because the thing is really the most important thing in sales and selling yourself is understanding the value in what you offer and feeling good about yourself, right? So feeling good about, I provide a valuable service. I am an expert. I am able to provide value into this person's life. When you fully believe that, you don't really have a problem selling the person. I think what a lot of people associate with sales is they associate the person that's like, you gotta buy now, okay? Or it's like,
well, maybe you do need to buy now. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying that. I mean, I've had clients who didn't know they needed to buy now. And the more they hear, the more they realize, oh my gosh, my competitor really has an edge on me because I didn't know that you could solve this problem for me. And essentially, that's what, when you go out here, it's music to your ears.
Right.
And you feel very confident.
Yeah, I think the important distinguishing factor for everyone here when you're listening to this is that this is done in a way where, like Mom and I were talking about, you're asking questions. You're hearing from the person. Like maybe somebody has been dealing with, maybe they have Hashimoto's and they've been dealing with those symptoms for years. It's horrible. It's draining. Things are not going great. Do they need to buy from you now? Probably yes. Why? Because you could help them fix this thing. Okay? Now, if it's done in a correct way, it can be done is the person self-realizes this themselves, right? So I think what happens is, like Mom was saying earlier, is sometimes you get around people who haven't developed those sales skills, and you're around a person, you're like, I don't feel like I need to buy this. And yet the person keeps moving forward towards you, right? And you're energetically pulling back and you're like, I don't feel like I need this. And the person is like, they're not asking you questions. They're not trying to get to know you. And they're just pushing.
Well, you're in their space before you need to be. And you have to learn to keep a respectful space. And the way you keep a respectful space is the energy that flows back and forth between you and that individual. And so as far as Hashimoto's goes, I deal with that myself. So one of the things that I keep in mind whenever I'm looking for someone to help me, it's been an ongoing thing for the last 10, 15 years, closer to 15. So I get the most help from someone who's actually experienced that disease themselves and they deal with it. And they come across as offering me more value added than just the product I'm buying. They make themselves available to answer questions I have. They respond when I have a product I've received and I don't quite understand. They provide me with additional things that can help me feel better that I didn't even ask for. And then I get to use them. It's a value-added thing at no extra charge. And once I see how all the information they put out there for me to access and read at my leisure, it makes me feel this person really does understand what they're doing and what they're offering. They've had clients that are writing testimonials. That's another thing I would really encourage you. There's nothing stronger than having the opportunity to reach a new customer through a referral. A referral is wonderful, and a client testimonial is wonderful. So clearly, those are things when you have satisfied customers that is going to work to your benefit to gain other customers. It's just kind of starts rolling like a small snowball and turns into an avalanche. And that's the best client you can get.
I agree. So I think that's a fantastic note to end on and talk about. I really think this was a great discussion. I think it's going to help a lot of people with their mindset around sales for sure, right? And I think it really goes to show that, it's probably, if we just wrap this up in like a neat, tiny little short bow, it would be one, you've got to be confident in yourself, what you offer, right? And you yourself being the expert, and that's key here. 2, you've got to be a fantastic listener, right? 3, you need to gauge energy, right? Because maybe somebody really needs it. Maybe they need to buy today. Maybe that buying today is what they need in their life. But if we're gauging energy properly, what we're doing is we're making it much more receptive. We're hearing what's going on in their life rather than the person pulling back and us pushing forward, right? Which is where you probably experience with people where they don't have the best sales skills and it's like, this does not feel good. I feel like I don't want this, and yet you keep telling me you're not listening to what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. It's the listening skills. So, and then finally, just the last little bit is making sure you really understand your clients and your competition, mm-hmm. right? So that you can better serve people, right? And then, last little bit, get people results, right? But I work with experts, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what is kind of the beauty of who I get to work with. Is I work with a lot of people that have either experienced it themselves, right? Or they have all this, breadth of knowledge about nutrition, about health, about wellness to be able to truly help people.
And I think that's a good point, Natalie, because one of the strongest persuasion sentences that I used with clients, new prospects, I'll say, is I would ask them if I could share with them some experiences that my successful clients had had.
Yeah,
especially,
I do that as well.
Especially experiences that were similar to theirs.
This is such
you
really
want to say, Mr. Prospect, I have a client that has a similar situation as you. Yeah. And could I share that with you? Because it's so similar. I think you're going to benefit by hearing it. Mm-hmm. And even if you decide not to do anything with me, you may come back and think about it later and say, that's exactly what my issue is. Yeah. And what do I have to lose?
I think that's a great note to end on. So thank you so much, Mom. Thank you so much. No, I truly appreciate it. I think this was a great discussion. I loved having you here, right? Everybody, this is my mom.
I'm so proud of my daughter.
This is my mom. This is where I came from, okay?
And success to all of you.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Mom, and I'll see you all in the next upcoming videos.